All right, guys, a little confession. We're going to start chapter 2. This is the first time I've read this book, too. So let's just review a little bit about chapter 1. We know that Judy was raised in China, in Shanghai, China. We know that now she has, after running away and making it her way back home, she now has her new home on a Navy boat for Great Britain, the British Royal Navy. And we also know she's not a very good hunting dog. So in chapter 2, I have no idea what's going to happen because I have not read chapter 2 yet either. So get out your books and turn them to page 18, chapter 2, called Dog Overboard. Now, if you ever heard the phrase overboard before, it makes me a little nervous because somebody going overboard means that they've fallen off a ship. So I'm hoping that chapter 2's title, Dog Overboard, does not mean that Judy falls off the ship. I'm a little nervous. All right. I was used to the noise of Shanghai, but the roar of the gnat's engines, remember the gnat is the name of the boat she's on, and the rush of the water as we fought our way upstream was another thing entirely. The gray foam that followed the ship, churned up by the engines, fascinated me. So did the yellowish brown water that stretched in front of us. It was full of new smells. A few days after I joined the ship, I wiggled under the ship's rail and onto the steel plates of the outer edge of the deck to get an even closer look. I had seen men out there before. They always attached themselves to the rail with a leash, so they had to go out there and attach themselves to something so they wouldn't fall in. Yeah. As soon as I got out there, I realized why. These steel plates are wet and slippery. I danced around, barking at the churning, frothing water below me, and trying to keep my footing. The last thing I heard as I went over the edge was, "Man overboard! No, dog overboard!" I hit the water with a giant splash and howled. Bad tasting water rushed into my mouth because this is kind of a dirty river. Ugh, this is cold and deep. I had splashed in puddles and in baths, but I had never been in deep water before. I paddled and paddled, trying to keep my head above water. Even worse than the deep, cold water, the gnat was going in one direction and the rushing river was carrying me in the other. I paddled as hard as I could, but there was no way I'd be able to fight my way back to my ship. The water was too rough and too fast. I'm in big trouble. Suddenly, there was a buzzing sound behind me. I couldn't see what it was over the choppy water, but it got louder and louder as I struggled to keep myself from being dragged under. I don't know what that is. Then I saw it. Oh, a small boat with Seaman Vic Oliver at the tiller. He fought his way toward me, and then he passed right by. One of the Chinese boat boys and another seaman were with him. I would have barked to say, "Come back," but keeping my head above water took every bit of energy I had. Then Oliver gave the boat a tight turn. The Chinese boy leaned over the side to grab my collar. Rescue, I thought, but not quite. The boy fell overboard too, and we were both dragged under. Oh. I could feel him thrashing near me while I fought to break the surface and take a breath. So he's gone under and he's trying to get back up to breathe. The next thing I knew, 2 sets of hands were pulling me, and then the boy out of the water. I heard a cheer from the deck of the Gnat as I slumped, shivering, in the bottom of the rescue boat. When I got back on the ship, I was covered in Yangtze River mud. Remember, I said it was a dirty river. I thought I smelled wonderful, but CPO Jeffrey insisted on giving me a hot bath, which was fine since I was freezing. Then he took me back out on deck. That scared me a little. I did not want to fall overboard again. But he pointed to all the things I should stay away from, and that included anything too close to the edge. Believe me, I thought, I am never going to do that again. My usual habit was to wander around the ship at night and choose a place to sleep. But that night I stuck close to the CPO. I needed a peaceful rest after all the excitement. The next few days were exactly that, peaceful. We steamed along upriver, waving to French and British ships going the other way. I curled my lip and growled when 4 Japanese warships passed by us. I recognized their uniforms and their flag. Remember, the Japanese ships are against us in the war. Kickers. Remember they used to kick him? Or kick her? Kickers, I thought. We pressed on until we passed Nanking, China's capital, and reached a small settlement called Wuhu. That meant expeditions on shore. There was a Navy canteen that served ice cream, and let me tell you, it was delicious. Too soon, we continued upriver into a land of steep gorges. The walls towered above us on either side of the river. One night, far from any settlement, we were forced to lay anchor in one of those wild, unpopulated, so there aren't people there, gorges. There was no sign of danger, but I slept on deck anyway, just in case. Something told me to be on alert. So he's feeling something's not, or she's feeling something's not right. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, I heard something that wasn't right. I shrugged off my blanket and sat up. There it was again, a quiet, sneaky noise. Living on the streets of Shanghai had taught me about danger and how to sense when it was near. I knew something threatening was coming toward us. Pirates. Remember, I told you pirates would take the things that were on the ship and steal them. And you don't want pirates to attack your ship. Human ears are about as useful as their noses. I knew the officer on watch didn't hear the danger, so I started to bark. So remember, dogs can smell better than humans and they can hear better than humans. So she's alerting the officers on deck. He tried to shush me. Quiet, girl, you'll wake everyone up. I'm not stopping until you pay attention, I barked. Thankfully, he did. He directed a signal light in the direction I was pointing and trained it on the river. So to be able to see, they have these big lights that they put out into the water. Finally, he saw what was coming. 2 large pirate junks, or flat-bottom boats, drifting silently toward us. So they're silent so that you can't hear them sneak up on you. Not so silently that my super powerful ears didn't hear you, I thought. Now that he saw the danger, I did what the watch officer asked and shushed. Won't those pirates be surprised when they try to board the ship? So they assume everyone's sleeping on board. The officer fired one shot into the sky, and within seconds, the Gnat's deck was full of pajama-wearing sailors ready to fight. It would have been a funny scene if real danger wasn't heading right toward us. The pirates weren't as smart as me. Either they didn't know they had been spotted, or they were too far into their criminal plan to turn back. The junks, those boats, came along on either side of the Gnat, snagging us with long bamboo rope that stretched from one of their vessels to the other. So they kind of wrapped a rope around their boat. The minute that rope hit our prow, the Gnat's machine guns opened fire. Even so, the shadowy figures rose up and tried to board our ship, only to be met with more gunfire. Now I felt perfectly free to bark and snarl at a pirate who jumped onto our deck. He froze and backed up. Be afraid, I warned him, be very afraid. Some of the Gnat sailors chopped away at the rope that was meant to trap us between the 2 pirate ships. As they broke through, the junk slipped into the darkness, pulled by the fast-moving current. The pirate under my watch jumped into the river to try to catch his ship. So once they cut that rope, the pirates' boat started drifting away. I've been in that water, I thought. You're not going to make it. So the Japanese sailor the pirate that tried to get back to his ship is going to have trouble. When it was all over, we celebrated our victory. Tanky gave me a bone he had been saving for a special occasion, and the watch officer made sure everyone knew that I had saved the day. You might not be a hunter, CPO Jeffrey said, giving me a rub down, but you sure are expert at knowing when danger lurks in the water. It turned out I was an expert at sensing danger from the sky, too. The Japanese had been more and more aggressive. They had already taken over Manchuria and Korea, and now they set their sights on China. They wanted to control China's natural riches like oil, and they were willing to fight anyone to get them, including us. One day, we were docked along the HMS B, another British Navy ship, when a very important human came on board. I could tell by the way the seamen had scrubbed everything in sight that something big was going to happen. And then we all stood on deck as a man in a fancy uniform with lots of ribbons walked up the gangplank. We were being inspected. He stopped in front of a lot of my men and made comments that I could tell they didn't like. He barely looked at me, even though I was sitting at attention and giving him my best smile. He was putting the sailors through drills when I sensed something bad was coming, a buzzing sound, a new one. That doesn't sound good. Danger, I barked. Danger in the sky. The fancy admiral glared at me, and the skipper tried to get me to be quiet. I can't be quiet. Danger is coming, I barked, and I didn't stop. If anything, I got louder. And then I pointed in the direction of the sound. Remember, she points with her paw. As I've said, humans' ears are practically useless. They looked where I was pointing and finally saw the black speck in the distance. It was a Japanese warplane. So now they don't just have Japanese ships to worry about. Now they have to worry about Japanese warplanes. And as it came near, the plane swooped much too low right over the Gnat, the name of their boat, and the Bee, the boat that's next to them, before rising again and disappearing into the distance. It was sending us a message, trying to scare us, but we didn't scare that easy. The admiral is, so remember I told you about the commander, the boss of the ship? The admiral is the head of the whole Navy, not just of this ship, but the whole Navy is what an admiral is. The admiral watched it go and then finally showed me some respect. Remarkable, he said, looking at me. The time is coming, I fear, when we all may need a dog like this stationed on the ship's bridge. It's about time you noticed. That's what Judy's thinking. Even though I had proved myself as an expert at sensing danger on the river and in the skies, those silly seamen were still surprised when I proved I could protect them on land, too. We were docked in Hankow. I don't know exactly where that is, but it must be a city somewhere in China, where our orders were to fly the flag and protect the city. It was a fun assignment. There was lots of entertainment, not to mention ice cream in the city. I joined a sailors' club, the Strong Toppers Club, with my men. It was a place where we went to play games and relax. I howled along when they sang their club song. Strong toopers are we on the dirty Yangtze. Gunboats or cruisers, we're here for a spree. I don't know if that's the tune, I just made it up. There was other fun to be had, too. There were games of rugby and soccer and field hockey with other ships. I was really good at scoring goals, even if I did sometimes score for the other team. So she doesn't always know which way the ball is supposed to be going. But my favorite thing in Hankow was the long runs I took with the seamen, especially CPO Jeffrey and Vic Oliver, who had saved me from drowning. It was on one of those runs that I proved I could take care of my guys no matter what. Jeffrey and I were out for a walk on Hankow Road. We soon left behind the city behind. The dense jungle that stretched along the Yangtze was on our left, and I could smell the river a short distance away. And then I smelled something else. Danger. An animal was stalking Jeffrey. It wasn't a deer. We had already spotted one of those, and it was harmless. This was a new smell. It was musky and big, and I smelled hunger behind it. Something hungry had its eyes on my man. I left Jeffrey and darted into the jungle to scare it away, but stopped short when I found it. Uh-oh, the thing isn't going to be afraid of me. This new thing was some kind of big cat, and it was covered in spots. It opened its mouth wide and hissed its warning when it saw me, and I saw lots of sharp teeth. But I guess it didn't want trouble. It turned its back on me and took 2 slow steps deeper into the forest. Then it looked at me over its shoulder through narrowed eyes. I yelped with fear and relief as it padded away. Jeffrey called to me, and I burst out of the jungle, trembling all over. He tried to get me to slow down and walk by his side, but I darted toward Hankow, forcing him to run to keep up. I knew he had to run, or that big cat would come after us again. He got the message and hurried after me. After a while, we turned and I saw it again, lurking on the side of the road, half hidden by the jungle. Jeffrey saw it too, and we picked up our pace. It wasn't until we got back to town that I learned the cat's name. Judy saved me from a forest leopard today, Jeffrey told everyone. She risked her life to save mine. Of course I did, I thought. That's my job. All right, so that's the end of chapter 2. Kind of an exciting chapter. I'll see you for chapter 3. Bye.